Meridu turned to Ralph. Aren't there any grown-ups? No. Meridu shut. It's too early. I don't even know what time it is. It's too early. Meridu sat down on a trunk and looked around the circle. Then we'll have to look after ourselves. Secure on the other side of Ralph, Piggy spoke timidly. That's why Ralph made a meeting, so as we can decide what to do. We've heard names. That's Johnny. Those two, they're twins, Sam and Eric. Which is Eric? You? No, you're Sam. I'm Sam. And I'm Eric. We better all have names, said Ralph, so I'm Ralph. We got most names, said Piggy. Got 'em just now. Kids' names, said Meridu. Why should I be Jack? I'm Meridu. Ralph turned to him quickly. This was the voice of one who knew his own mind. Then, went on Piggy, that boy. I forgot. You're talking too much, said Jack Meridu. Shut up, Fatty. Laughter arose. He's not Fatty, cried Ralph. His real name's Piggy. Piggy! Piggy! Oh, Piggy! A storm of laughter arose, and even the tiniest child joined in. For the moment, the boys were a close circuit of sympathy with Piggy outside. He went very pink, bowed his head, and cleaned his glasses again. Finally, the laughter died away, and the naming continued. There was Maurice, next in size among the choir boys to Jack, but broad and grinning all the time. There was a slight, furtive boy whom no one knew, who kept to himself with an inner intensity of avoidance and secrecy. He muttered that his name was Roger, and was silent again. Bill, Robert, Harold, Henry. The choir boy who had fainted sat up against the palm trunk, smiled pallidly at Ralph, and said that his name was Simon. And Jack spoke. We got to decide about being rescued. There was a buzz. One of the small boys, Henry, said that he wanted to go home. Shut up, said Ralph absently. He lifted the conch. Seems to me we ought to have a chief to decide things. A chief! A chief! I ought to be chief, said Jack with simple arrogance, because I'm chapter chorister and head boy. I can see C sharp. Another buzz. Well then, said Jack. He hesitated. The dark boy, Roger, stirred at last and spoke up. Let's have a vote. Yes, vote for chief. Let's vote. This toy of voting was almost as pleasing as the conch. Jack started to protest, but the clamor changed from the general wish for a chief to an election by acclaim of Ralph himself. None of the boys could have found good reason for this. What intelligence had been shown was traceable to Piggy, while the most obvious leader was Jack. But there was a stillness about Ralph as he sat that marked him out. There's his size and attractive appearance. Most obscurely, yet most powerfully, there was a conch. The being that had blown that, had sat waiting for them on the platform with the delicate thing balanced on his knees, was set apart. Him with the shell. Ralph! Ralph! Let him be chief with the trumpet thing! Ralph raised a hand for silence. All right, who wants Jack for chief? With dreary obedience, the choir boys raised their hand. Who wants me? Every hand outside the choir except Piggy's was raised immediately. Then Piggy, too, raised his hand grudgingly into the air. Ralph counted. I'm chief, then. The circle of boys broke into applause. Even the choir applauded, and the freckles on Jack's face disappeared under a blush of mortification. He started up, then changed his mind and sat down again while the air rang. Ralph looked at him, eager to offer something. The choir belongs to you, of course. They could be the army, or hunters. They could be... The suffusion drained away from Jack's face. Ralph waved again for silence. Jack's in charge of the choir. They can be... What do you want them to be? Hunters. Jack and Ralph smiled at each other with shy liking. The rest began to talk eagerly. Jack stood up. All right, choir, take off your togs. As if relieved from class, the choir boys stood up, chattered, piled their black cloaks on the grass. Jack laid his on the trunk by Ralph. His gray shorts were sticking to him with sweat. Ralph glanced at them admiringly, and when Jack saw his glance, he explained. I tried to get over that hill to see if there was water all around, but your shell called us. Ralph smiled and held up the conch for silence. Listen, everybody, I've got to have time to think things out. I can't decide what to do straight off. If this isn't an island, we might be rescued straight away. So we've got to decide if this is an island. Everybody must stay round here and wait and not go away. 3 of us. If we take more, we'd get all mixed and lose each other. 3 of us will go on an expedition and find out. I'll go, and Jack, and he looked around the circle for eagle. He looked around the circle of eager faces. There was no lack of boys to choose from. And Simon. The boys around Simon giggled, and he stood up, laughing a little. Now that the pallor of his faint was over, he was a skinny, vivid little boy, with a glance coming up from under a hood of straight hair that hung down, black and coarse. He nodded at Ralph. I'll come. And I. Jack snatched from behind his sizable sheathed knife and clouded into a trunk. The buzz rose and died away. Piggy stirred. I'll come. Ralph turned to him. You're no good on a job like this. All the same, we don't want you. Jack flatly. 3's enough. Piggy's glasses flashed. I was with him when he found the conch. I was with him before anyone else was. Jack and the others paid no attention. There was a general dispersal. Ralph, Jack, and Simon jumped off the platform and walked along the sand past the bathing pool. Piggy hung bumbling behind them. If Simon walks in the middle of us, said Ralph, then we could talk over his head. The 3 of them fell into step. This meant that every now and then Simon had to do a double shuffle to catch up with the others. Presently Ralph stopped and turned back to Piggy. Look! Jack and Simon pretended to notice nothing. They walked on. You can't come. Piggy's glasses were misted again, this time with humiliation. You told him, after what I said. His face flushed, his mouth trembled. After I said I didn't want... What on earth are you talking about? About being called Piggy. I said I didn't care as long as they didn't call me Piggy. And I said not to tell, and then you said straight out. Stillness descended on them. Ralph, looking with more understanding at Piggy, saw that he was hurt and crushed. He hovered between the 2 courses of apology, or further insult. Better Piggy than Fatty, he said at last, with the directness of genuine leadership. And anyway, I'm sorry you feel like that. Now go back, Piggy. Take names. That's your job. So long. He turned and raced after the other 2. Piggy stood, and the rose of indignation faded slowly from his cheeks. He went back to the platform. I'm going to have to stop here for this morning because, yeah, it's getting late. So, we just stopped. They are on an island. They are taking names, taking leaders. Currently, Ralph is the leader because he has a conch shell. And I hope to see you during the next Kai's early morning reading hours thing. So, yeah. Peace.